I am very, I am very pleased to introduce our speakers this morning, Heidi Blanke, Maureen Friedland, and Jan Gallagher. They are all part of the La Crosse Welcome Circle, which formed in 2022 in response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Elizabeth Reinertson was also supposed to be here, but was not able to make it. I have had the immense pleasure to know all of the present speakers, and the absent speaker as well, for many years, and I hold them all in the highest regard. Heidi is the former director of WAFER. Maureen is a very recently retired distinguished member of the La Crosse County Board and a past recipient of the MLK Award for her work in the community. Jan retired after decades-long service at UWL, where she envisioned and recreated the small business program in the School of Business. I know because I have heard stories that all of them have been very actively involved in many and diverse ways that have been required to support the Ukrainian refugees who have recently enriched our community. And remembering that I'm a retired professor who loves to talk, I'm also all too aware that if I keep telling you every great thing I know about these amazing people, I will not have enough time for this presentation. So I now happily turn it over to them to enlighten us regarding what has happened since the last presentation we heard from this group.
Hey, first of all, thank you for having us here again. Much has changed in the couple of years since we last spoke with you. Last year's been a little difficult, and we'll have some time for questions, we hope, at the end. But it's hard to believe that we first met in the summer of 2022 at the request of a person who wanted help bringing Ukrainian friends and family to the La Crosse area. I remember sitting outside at our first meeting. COVID was still a thing, and not having a clue as to how the immigration process worked. It didn't take long for us to realize how complicated it was. We turned to an immigration agency called HIAS. Over 100 years ago, it was created as the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, but now assists immigrants facing dire circumstances all over the world. Their webpage information and Zoom seminars put us on track and gave us a blueprint for the process. Their guidelines assisted us in completing the proper paperwork and identifying the steps we should take once the newcomers arrive to help them settle in. Although we, a very, very, very small group, could not meet all of HIAS's requirements for working with them to bring Ukrainians here, HIAS did not hesitate to answer our questions and address our concerns. And I think Jan is going to go into HIAS a little bit more, or Maureen, or maybe somebody was. Maybe not. You can ask us later. The first families arrived in November of 2022 via a sponsor from our group. We sponsored 2 more families, but our efforts also supported those who were sponsored by Uniting for Ukraine, a total of about 18 people. And I think Maureen will be talking more about where some of those people are now and how they are doing. Once we realized the magnitude of what was needed to help Ukrainians settle here, we knew our small group couldn't do it alone. We gave talks, appeared on TV, and worked to get our organization's mission known. CooleyCap generously served as our financial go-between, allowing us to function as a nonprofit. The Cooley region community, as goes without saying, responded, and donations arrived to help pay rent, purchase food, clothing, and daily living items. People volunteered to drive the newcomers where they needed to go, to help with English instruction, and supply a car and an apartment. And we'll go into more detail about how the community helped us negate the magnitude of what would have been flying by the seat of our pants. In an ideal world, people wouldn't flee for their lives, and La Crosse Welcome Circle would be acting more like the welcome wagon. No matter what the situation, our group and communities like yours will be here to welcome the stranger. And I turn the program over to the next short person.
So when Eric said, you've been talking about resilience, and now I see in the program this morning is just, it's such a direct connection to the kinds of things that we also believe in. And resilience, the one thing that stood out to me as I looked at what is resilience is that building resilience depends on having a strong support network. and knowing when to ask for help and feeling free to ask. And so as we welcomed the newcomers, and that's what they told us to call them. Haya said, don't call them refugees, call them newcomers. It's so much more respectful. As we were coached and as we learned on the ground, one of the most important things was a sense of respect. At the beginning, it was very practical. So many things were needed, as you can imagine, relocating from your home to a new city and trying to find your way. So much of it was just practical, furnishings for apartments and linens and getting the kids registered for school. And, the list, our checklist is, we still have it, 3 pages long of the things that we needed to check. Do they need a primary care physician? Yes. How are we going to set that up? Pediatrician, yes or no? So you can imagine that there was very practical time, but at the same time, it was very personal because we were there with them when they saw the primary care physician for the first time. We didn't need to be there after that, but we needed to be that bridge. And after a while, they came to trust that if we offered to do something, we would do it. And that building trust at a very personal level, I think really helped them a lot. And I think that's what happens as you reach out to individuals here in this community. It's the same thing. It's building trust that if you ask for help, you'll get it. And I just can't say that enough, really. I don't know how much you really would like to know about the details of the welcoming, but that was the first ones came in November of 22, and the war started in February of 22. The application process had to start for the Uniting for Ukraine program had to start here with sponsors who were willing to sign the documents to say that they would be the bridge to their relocation. And then they could make application from their end. So it did take a while for them to get here. Let me see, what else did I want to tell you about that? Over time, there were about 18 individuals from Ukraine, but not all of them are through the Welcome Circle. There were sponsors in the La Crosse area who filled out the forms and welcomed individuals in the Uniting for Ukraine program. But as we learned about people who were in the community and if they needed any support from us, we also extended the circle further. But they aren't all here now. We did have 3 adults leave. Well, one was a high school student who left and went to Finland. One was a mother and her teenage son left for Europe, and one other family left shortly after they came, a young mother with her toddler. So not everyone stayed, whether they are self-deporting or just really found that they needed another place. We weren't always privileged to know the full detail. So right now, I'd have to characterize the situation that people are very, very independent. They've set up their own lives, their own community of friends. They're working full-time. All the adults are working full-time. All of them are paying taxes. Nobody anymore needs any social services support of any kind. I say that because the narrative in the newspapers would make you think that immigrants are using the social services to the extreme. They did for a while, and I have to tell you that it was a very welcoming community. It wasn't just the Welcome Circle individuals who were reaching out, but I can tell you the school district made a special effort, a very personal extension of support and service. The human services, the food services, as I said, it's a 3-page checklist. The county especially, city and county reached out in a very, very welcoming and supportive way. And all of the Ukrainians knew how to get back to the people who were offering support. They didn't need us endlessly. And in fact, now we get together more socially than we do because there's a base need. But if there's a banking question, an insurance question, that kind of thing, yes, we're still there. And they know how to reach us. But it's not the same kind of interdependency that it once was. But what's changed, and this is what Heidi alluded to, is this degree of uncertainty that we now know as a national degree of uncertainty for the internationals. So I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so there is uncertainty, and it's very scary. Our Ukrainians, of course, have the privilege, the unearned privilege, the born privilege of having white skin. And so they are therefore not the most obvious targets to ICE or to immigration agents, but their future here is really very uncertain. The government has made it very difficult for papers to get processed properly. There have been times that the process has just shut down, and if the person goes into a status that's not a full valid status, then that's their problem. There have been some efforts in particular against some of the newcomers who are truck drivers. Many of them have become truck drivers. And there have been some targeted raids in different parts of the country to check immigration status and to send them to Texas with everyone else. So mostly through no fault of their own, they are still being targeted, and they're very, very worried. They're here under TPS, temporary protective status, for most part, but that can be pulled by the government on 60-day notice. And we know it has been for Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, Haitians. So there is the possibility that they can lose that status. And we know that our president can change his mind about anything in any second regarding immigrants, and particularly Ukrainians, and they could be forced out very, very quickly. And they were here originally for 2 years, expecting to be here for 2 years, but no one expected the war to be continuing for this long either. So they've been here for 3 years now, and they're happy here and they're productive. They've had to talk about resilience. They've had to adjust their lives. We have a former banker who is working in the bakery department of a grocery store. She loves it, but she has done other things. One of our truck drivers was an architect in a building contractor in the past. So they are only slowly beginning to figure out their way up here, struggling with different degrees of speaking English also. They aren't refugees either, in the sense that most of them cannot prove that they would be subject to persecution if they went back to their original countries, because you have to either show that because of a religious reason or political reason or something like that, that you would be persecuted and abused if you went back. By and large, they can't show that, so they are having difficulty applying for a permanent kind of status that would allow them to stay for a very long time. In some communities, they may be working for hospitals in very specific fields where they can get the kind of visa, working visa, that will allow you to stay. But even those are becoming hard to get. There's one visa out there that they can now apply for that they couldn't before. There's $1,000 fee on any application, which, if you had certainty that it was going to go through, that would be fine. But there isn't certainty there. So there are retaliatory actions also. The paperwork that we had to fill out originally to bring people in, there was a form there called a financial support affidavit. where we had to each individually guarantee that if there were government benefits given that the government felt should be reimbursed by the sponsor could be on the line. And we didn't treat those, based on our research about them, we didn't treat those as much of a threat. Now, I have not heard of anyone in the Ukrainian community, any of the sponsors being told, you got to pay back all those benefits that they got when they came here. But that is happening in the Somali community in Minneapolis. So people who brought them in are now having to, they're getting letters saying that they owe, hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance benefits or whatever, hospitalizations. So there is retaliatory stuff going on. Meanwhile, in parts of Russia, parts of Ukraine that Russia is controlling, their Ukrainian citizenship is being taken away by order of the Russians. So if it's very questionable whether they could even go back to those areas. There have been at least 3 or 4 plane loads of people who have been deported, Ukrainians who have been deported. So we're doing the best we can. We're in touch with some immigration lawyers. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not an immigration lawyer. It's very, very specific, and you need to have special certification for that. So things are really touch and go. And we're trying to prepare them as much as we can. We've offered to do guardianships for children in case the parents are put in a difficult position, so we can take care of the children. We've asked them to sign powers of attorney so that if necessary, we could sell their car or get into their bank accounts, that kind of thing. So we're hanging in there and trying to keep as close tabs as we can while these people just are so dear. They are so hardworking and optimistic. And if you want to buy the best online cookies, there go to B Confectionaries. She's got a business online of cupcakes and cakes and so forth. And we just the kids are just speaking English like they never knew any other. And we hope to have good results, good outcomes from everybody, because they like being here. They want to stay here. Thank you. Thanks. Okay.